We know the Ravens blew the Bills out earlier in the season. That was in Baltimore.
Josh Allen said post-game that he's going to be watching a lot of film of that defense, okay?
Well, I hope so. Somebody needs to.
He's obviously skipped it a few weeks ago.
Yeah, he missed it that week.
Welcome in, Sports Bluff family. Wildcard weekend is in the books. It's done. It's over with. Boy, did we have a great second day of games. The second day, Sunday, that's what football's all about, especially the last game. We'll obviously talk about that first. The games were great. I will say, no big surprises happened.
Well, this kind of goes back to the other issue. Also, my dog is begging me to hold them. If you see them in the frame, I apologize. But
they want to be a part of the wild card weekend as well.
They're Washington fans, and they're excited, okay? You talking about the games not being exciting. Saturday was exciting for the storylines, not really the game.
Yeah, that's
Even
right.
the Packers-Eagles game, didn't really live up to much. What this does is just re-solidify the idea to me, we don't need 7 teams. Go back to the 6 teams. Let the first 2 teams both have the bye, you know what I mean? And then the playoff matches are more competitive. The 7 seeds don't deserve to make the playoffs. It's silly, but I know we're never going backwards. With that said, thankfully, the final game, we're recording this before Vikings-Rams. Everyone will see it after, unfortunately, so we haven't seen that. But at this point, the Commanders-Bucs games did live up to the hype and finish the wild card Saturday-Sunday slate strong.
I know everybody's turned their attention to next week's games already, but I'm telling you, we got to talk about these games first, okay? What do you say we talk about these games, dissect them a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next week preview?
Let's do it.
Washington. The drought's over. It's done. And hey, look, newsflash, Jayden Daniels is the guy. I was right when I said Dan Quinn was going to change this organization. I did not think it would be this fast in his first year with a rookie quarterback. But Daniels is the dude in Washington. Everybody's behind him. The team believes in him. Terry McLaurin, one time I heard him say that he can't believe he thinks he's in a dream. Somebody pinch him, please, because he's been through so many quarterbacks and they haven't worked out. Finally, he has the guy there. He joins the short list of rookie quarterbacks to win playoff games, especially on the road. What do you make of this game? Do you think that this is kind of the catalyst for Jayden Daniels being the guy we talk about for the next 5 to 10 years, possibly?
Well, here's the one thing. He's definitely the dude in the NFC. It's finally we got a real hotshot young quarterback come into the NFC and be good, because the NFC is mostly rosters with overpaid quarterbacks. Jordan Love kind of proved that today, and we will obviously get into that. But I'm just so impressed with Jayden Daniels. I thought he was too small to be successful in the NFL. Obviously, when I watched his college tape, it was incredible. I was just really worried about the size. But do you know what impressed me most about him? And you'll probably agree. It's the absolute poise, Ryan. And because he has 70-something college starts, he's played a lot of football. He never looks rattled. And you could tell from the first snap against the Bucs, he just looks like that's where he belongs. It's another day at the office. He is always in complete control, and it's really impressive. You mentioned that the drought is over. For anyone that doesn't know, first playoff win for Washington since 2005, 19 years, and it ended this weekend.
Chris Collinsworth constantly reminds everybody that he looks like Lamar Jackson, and that it's not far off. When he's moving through the pocket, through the tackles, he moves Lamar Jackson-esque. He has that shiftability, that QB run mentality, almost like a run-first mentality. It reminds me of Lamar Jackson, when he first got into the league.
He plays more pocket quarterback than Lamar did when he first started, though.
And I will say this, I think he is a better passing quarterback than Lamar was when Lamar first entered in to the NFL.
That's without a debate. It also feels like a lot of his runs are designed. He doesn't scramble a ton. He does occasionally when the play breaks down, but even when the play breaks down, he's scrambling to pass. Most of the runs are designed, and they really got Tampa off script early with RPOs, and that one deep shot to McLaurin early in the game scared Tampa out of the blitz. Later, they went back to it, but it just kind of felt like when you compared the two teams tonight, and I really like Baker Mayfield, he didn't have a great night. He was good, 15 for 18, 185, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, the fumble was a big one, but it, to me, felt like Jayden Daniels was the quarterback in command of the football game this evening.
Yeah, he was able to control the clock. They were able to put together long drives. The problem with Tampa Bay is they were constantly going 3 and out.
Yep.
And it doesn't work. it seemed like Washington had an answer for every situation that they were in. The fourth down conversions were really big. I think they had 2 or 3 of them. And Jayden Daniels made almost all of them. So it was one of those things where the fumble was a big deal for Tampa. That was probably the game changer. If Tampa could have drove down and scored on that drive, we probably would have wound up in overtime. I don't know, though. Dan Quinn may have said, if we get the touchdown here, let's go for 2 and knock it out.
But when the fumble happened, at least I can't speak to you, it felt like, oh, that might be the game.
It was like the breath that just came out of Tampa Bay, and that was the last breath that they were going to breathe that night. And it was, unfortunately. I think we nailed it last week when we said if you could shut down Baker Mayfield, one thing I want to point out is this Washington defense really stepped up. Like
they did. They really did.
Baker had an okay night, but compared to his previous weeks and the rest of the season, Washington really contained him. Like they held him really tight, even though he was able to get Evans, and him and Lattimore were battling all night, and Evans won that battle most of the night. But even though that happened, they still contained Baker. They shut down the run for Bucky Irving, and they did everything they needed to do to stop this high-powered Tampa Bay offense. And we said that Tampa Bay, I think it was you, said that you had to have one way for them to win. We'll talk about another team that has to have one way to win here in just a second. But they have to have one way to win. If you shut it down, game's up.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think they shut down Bucky Irving, but I think they did a good job maintaining him. He had 17 carries, 77 yards. There was a point maybe in the third quarter where it felt like Bucky Irving was really getting going, like really rolling, and whether it was a change of possession or whatever ended up happening, it kind of stifled that a little. It's interesting because when you look at the box score and you look at the numbers, this is why you have to watch the football games. The box score isn't bad by Tampa Bay. It's just really, to me, it came down to game management. And I don't mean that in a cliche term. It just felt like the Commanders managed the clock better, managed the game better, and the Buccaneers had a lot of penalties that hurt them too. Todd Bowles said that in the halftime interview. It's like we have to stop shooting ourselves in the foot with penalties. And they kind of did. Commanders played a cleaner game. They just looked like the better football team, which me and you both predicted them to win this game, but it was a great matchup. We knew it would be a good game. And I don't think it's crazy to say the Commanders could win another playoff game. I think both of these teams were frisky.
Yeah, absolutely. Complete side note. Every time they pan to Todd Bowles, does it not look like he's constipated? I mean, it is definitely, like Pepto needs to do a commercial with him. Because Pepto only helps diarrhea. Whatever helps constipation. Okay, it's not Pepto. It'll make you more constipated. Anyway, do you not agree, though? Every time they pan over, it's like they use a still shot of him.
I don't know if constipation's where I would have gone with it.
Look at his face next time and think
he always does. He always almost looks like not confused, but like, did I hear them right? Is that what they said? Which is interesting because it's funny. He's a terrific football coach, but anytime they cut to him, it looks like he doesn't care. I do like the even kill though. I hate the coaches like Sirianni that get up and down. Like Todd Bowles is even killed. Unfortunately, him and the Bucs are going home, even though they had a really good season, but they ran into Washington, who ends up finishing the season 13-5, and they're going to the divisional round. No one saw this coming. If you would have told them preseason, they would have been happy. They got a date with Detroit next week, and we'll talk about that game here in a little bit.
The Texans, they defeated the Chargers 32-12. I say defeated. They really just they demolished the Chargers up and down the field. They made Justin Herbert look like he'd never played a snap of NFL football. And I'm telling you, I know a lot of people, including yourself, for more than me at least, has been on that Herbert train. And I'm just telling you, man, I'm still not on that Herbert train. I don't know that he has all the attributes of, like, if you crafted a quarterback in this little, science lab, that's who you would want, but it just doesn't translate to the field. So is it time to stop fawning over Justin Herbert and stop putting him up on a pedestal that he hasn't earned yet?
Absolutely, 100%. And this goes for me too. I will just, and you can agree or disagree with me here, just to give myself a little bit. Okay, moving on. A little bit of defense here. I don't think I was putting him like a lot of the media people are. You hear the media fawn over him like he's a top 4 quarterback.
More than me.
I was definitely higher on him than you. We talked about that in our Kansas City trip when we were ranking quarterbacks. But I wasn't saying like, oh, all he needs is a coach, he can win Super Bowls. It wasn't that. I was just saying he is a really physically talented quarterback if he gets some opportunities. But the playoff game that he lost to Trevor Lawrence, he didn't play great in that. And then this game was a absolute disaster. It was a nightmare scenario. Everyone knows the stat line, 14 for 32, 242 yards, a touchdown, 4 interceptions. That's it. And here's the thing, buddy. It's not even that they were like tight interceptions. They were like, who are you throwing it to? What are you seeing? I can't remember the last time an NFL player or an NFL quarterback hurt their stock in a playoff game as much as he did in this game. I know they weren't supposed to make it this far. I know 11-7 is a big win, but I don't care how good the season went. When you have that performance in a playoff game, that puts the future in question. So hopefully, I agree with you. We got to stop putting him on the pedestal. With that performance, I don't even know if you can call him a top 10 quarterback. I don't think you can.
I wouldn't. He's outside the top 10 for me.
Right.
But that's the thing, though. You mentioned that, they weren't even supposed to be here. So is he further along than he would have been with Brandon Staley? Yes. Everybody is. The water boy's even delivering water faster now. It's crazy. It's an anomaly that's happening over at the Chargers right now with Staley out. But what I'm saying is, Justin Herbert, the way he performed, there is no excuse to perform that bad in a playoff game against the Texans. It's not like they were going up against the Ravens or
Texans
the Bills.
Looked dead the past couple of weeks. We picked the Chargers to win. We thought the Texans were going to roll over. Credit to D'Amico and company, and we'll talk about them more in the preview game for next week. The defense showed up. C.J. Stroud showed up. What really swung the game was that play C.J. Stroud made, extending on third down and making that big pass that kept that drive alive before halftime. That really kind of changed the game because the Chargers jumped out to a 6-0 lead. But after that, Herbert just collapsed, Ryan. And to your point, he's farther along than he is with Brandon Staley, but a lot of times the media talk about Justin Herbert as if he's still a rookie. Ryan, this is his 5th year was his 5th year. Next season will be his 6th season. I understand he has some nice regular season numbers, but 5 seasons in the league and you've had no playoff wins. You've had 2 playoff performances. One of them, you blew a 28-point lead, and in the other one, you threw 4 interceptions, basically more than you've thrown all year. Definitely more than you've thrown all year. That's just unacceptable. No one can say, there's no one to pin the Chargers' loss on it other than Justin Herbert. It is all on his shoulders.
Well, everybody knew it was coming. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, they crushed the Steelers 28-14. It probably even looked worse than that.
It looked bad.
It looked really, really bad. Even Tomlin's face looked bad at times. And that's who I want to talk about here. We can talk about the game all day long, but let's be real. The headline here is Mike Tomlin. What are we going to do? You've been saying it for quite a long time.
Since we started the show, yeah.
Is it time to have that discussion about Mike Tomlin? Because this seems like the MO of who the Steelers are with Tomlin is they make the playoffs and they lose in the first round. Every single year, they're just good enough to make it to the playoffs, and then they fumble it and intercept and whatever bad negative term you want to use, they blow it every time they get into the playoffs. This cannot be overlooked.
I agree with you 100%, Ryan. As you know, I've been saying it, and not as in like a bad thing, not as in like he's a bad coach. It's just at a certain point, what I've said is, if you're a Steelers fan, you have to ask yourself, is it enough? Am I happy winning 10 games every year and then making the playoffs and getting destroyed in the first round? No, I wouldn't be happy like that. It's better than being a terrible franchise and winning 3 games and picking at the top of the draft. But at least when you do that, you've got a chance at drafting a great quarterback and turning it around. The Steelers are stuck in this, horrible
in between.
Yeah, it's this in between land where you're not good enough. You're not bad enough to get a high draft pick and turn things around. You're not good enough to really go on a playoff run. No one thought they were going to win a playoff game this year. No one thought they were going to win one last year. I have a graphic here showing Tomlin's playoff results. Let's take a look at it. This is since 2017. So basically the drought. As you can see, 2017, 13-3 season, lost to the Jaguars 42-45. 2020, 12-4 season, lost to the Browns 37-48. 2021, 9-7, lost to the Chiefs. And then last year, lost to the Bills. And this year, lost to the Ravens 14-28. He's been outscored. The team has been outscored by an average of 12.6 points in every playoff game they've been in since 2017. We're coming up on the point to where something's got to give. And I'm not even saying that I think Mike Tomlin is a bad football coach. I think he's a good coach. But sometimes it's time for change. I kind of equate it to Andy Reid in Philadelphia, parting ways. Philadelphia fired Andy Reid. And obviously now we all look back and are like, oh my God, that was crazy. And it was, but it had grown stale. Relationships had soured. It was time for a change. He had been there over 10 years. It's the same with Tomlin. He's been there a long time, and it's just rinse and repeat. I think it's time for something new. Someone would hire Mike Tomlin in an instant, and I think he would probably do well somewhere else. But he needs a quarterback. He's a defensive guy. The offense is always underperformed. And as I've said, you just have to ask yourself, are you happy with it? Steelers fans, are you happy with this? I know you don't want to fire the guy because he does well, but is this enough? If I'm a fan of a franchise like Pittsburgh that is historically great, if I'm Pittsburgh, I want to win Super Bowls. Do you have any faith that you can win Super Bowls under the current regime? I think the answer is clearly no.
Oh, it's a resounding no. And let's not forget that they bumped out the Bengals, okay? Like the Bengals could have been here instead of them.
And lost to the Bengals in the last week.
Right. And so we didn't get to see the Bengals play because the Steelers were just good enough and they won just enough games. It frustrates me because I do believe that Mike Tomlin is a good football coach. I mean, the record speaks for itself. He's a winning coach, you know. He's not a losing coach. But the problem is, I feel like he's maybe hit his cap. The potential is no longer there. I think it may be time to move on. Maybe Tomlin needs a change of scenery.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Maybe he needs to get that fire reignited back into the sales and start fresh with a new team. And, you know, maybe we see something like that happen. I don't know.
I think if you told me he leaves Pittsburgh and goes to another team and takes them and wins playoff games, I can totally see that happening.
Yeah.
100%. But it just, I think.
Hey, he could go to the Jags.
Hey, sometimes relationships run their course. And that's what it feels like here. It feels like he needs to go somewhere kind of like what you were saying about Dan Quinn taking over Washington. I'm not comparing him to Dan Quinn. You know, it seems Mike Tomlin's a better coach than Dan Quinn. Maybe not. We'll see. But Dan Quinn's got a quarterback. And you just have to have a quarterback to really win in this league. And the thing that really gets me, and then I'll get off my soapbox, what we always say about Steelers teams, Ryan, with under Tomlin. Oh, well, yeah, they don't have an offense, but they're tough. Oh, they're physical, and their defense is good, and they come to fight. If I was a Pittsburgh fan, I would be fucking embarrassed at that performance against the Ravens. And there's tape on Twitter showing the lack of effort. Ryan, I made a joke to you. I said, those guys have got to get on the red eye to Cabo that night. They're just ready to get out of the stadium. They did not show up. I can't remember the last time a playoff team in the playoffs looked like they didn't want to be there. And you can say that's an indictment on whoever you want, but it's got to stop somewhere. And to me, that's kind of an indictment on the head coach. The way the Steelers looked in that game against the Ravens, I know they had no chance to win. They looked pathetic, and it's inexcusable.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We always talk about how tough they are. They're tough. They're frisky. You know, all that. Well, that lasts all the way up until the wild card round, and then the inevitable happens. Toughness is outmatched by talent. Well, I hate to say it, but right again. Look, what I said last week happened. It actually happened. And what you said happened as well. You said that if the Eagles could get the Packers off script, meaning take away Josh Jacobs, then when the game has to rely on Jordan Love's shoulders, what you said was he plays better that way, which I said, no, he doesn't. And it just happened that he doesn't play better when the game rests on his shoulders. He throws a whole lot of interceptions. He takes a couple of sacks. He looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. He looks scared. He looks like a rookie quarterback, even though he's technically not. But it's one of those things where I hate that it happened because I think Green Bay really has the potential to be something. I just don't think Love is ready yet to step into that limelight and be that guy like Jayden Daniels is, you know? I just don't think he has that in him yet. I hope he can find it.
Well, but that's the problem, Ryan. If he doesn't have it in him by now,
it's just not going to come.
And it really is starting to feel like all of the Jordan Love discourse, all of the Jordan Love belief is up until this weekend was just riding off the last 8 games of last season, wasn't it? Because remember, going back to last season, 2023, he was awful the first half of the season. Terrible. Like we were all like, oh, well, what are they going to do for quarterback? Because it's a one and done with Love. And then he turned it on halfway through this season, and he was fantastic. And they went into Dallas and destroyed Dallas, the first ever 7 seed to win a playoff game. And then they went and took the fight to the 49ers. And he threw an awful interception to end the game, which you're like, okay, first year starting. I would say that's the turning point. Since that interception against the 49ers, he has not looked like the same quarterback. They paid him off of an incredibly small sample size, and I think they probably regret it. Part of me believes that maybe Matt LaFleur is able to get something else out of him, but the interceptions he threw in this game are inexcusable. The Green Bay defense played really good, Ryan. They held the Eagles to 16 points through 3 quarters. I mean, the fumble on the kickoff is the only reason the Eagles got a touchdown early in the game, or a touchdown at all, really. That was it. The Packers defense showed up to play, and Jordan Love just couldn't deliver. You were completely right about him. I kind of thought he would rise to the occasion and give a good fight. He did not. He completely crumbled, and it was the typical Jordan Love interceptions. Like some of them, throwing into double coverage when you've got a check down on second down or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember the exact details, but almost every interception, it wasn't like you could say, oh, well, he was, he had to take a shot there and he was trying. The very last one, they were already down 2 scores. He was just throwing it up, whatever. But the 2 before that, one, they were driving and he had Josh Jacobs, I think it was, like on the flat that could have maybe been a first down, and he just threw it up to the defense. I don't know, man. I don't think he's the long-term future at Green Bay, because it's kind of similar to Justin Herbert. You want to give a little grace, but this playoff performance was so bad, it's really hard to overlook. He cost them this game.
Back in November, we released a video that said, is it time to worry about Jordan Love? And I assume now that it was just foreshadowing what was to come, because I think we can unequivocally say that, yes, I think it is time to put a question mark at the end of his name. It is no longer Jordan Love in the Green Bay Packers. It's Jordan Love in the Green Bay Packers.
We thought they were excelling and being able to excel with him. It's starting to feel like Matt LaFleur is having to coach around him.
Yeah, and you could even see the exhaustion on LaFleur's face on the sidelines. They pan to it several times where, Jordan Love just makes a boneheaded mistake, and LaFleur's like, are you kidding me right now? And I know it's hard for him because he's been through this and he's been so successful with almost every quarterback he's had at Green Bay, and now he has a guy that has the talent to be that type of quarterback, but it just doesn't seem to display itself on the field. Up
here, something's not clicking up here. And the comparison, because of Green Bay, because of the history, it's like, oh, well, he's got that thing like Brett Favre. Yeah, Brett Favre threw a lot of stupid interceptions. The difference is he would come right back after an interception and throw a 75-yard touchdown to put a dagger in your back. Jordan Love didn't have a touchdown in this game. He did nothing. Jordan Love didn't make a play in this game that made me go, oh, there he is. He didn't. Like, not a single play. And that's just crazy. If Brett Favre was out there, he would have gotten 1 touchdown, at least 2.
And it's the playoffs. It's the biggest game up until this point in the year. You have to make those throws that make you say, oh, wow, there he is. That's MVP football. That's what we're looking for. And I'm not saying that he's obviously an MVP candidate, but you have to make throws as if you were.
No, I completely agree, especially when you play for the Packers. When you're in this position, the season didn't go exactly how you wanted it to go, but you're not the 7th seed. This was supposed to be an improvement off last year. You won a playoff game last year as the 7th seed when no one believed in you. I know they've had injuries. Even in this game, they had a lot of injuries. They've had a lot of bad luck. Whatever. Everyone has them. Injuries don't excuse the quarterback play, especially when the defense played up to that level. They paid him. They're not moving off from him. But it's also more interesting when you think about how Malik Willis looked in those couple games he had to start. He looked really good. They won games with Malik Willis. So you wonder if Matt LaFleur is starting to talk to the GM, if they're having conversations about, hey, once this contract is over, like, I can win with other guys, because the interception problem for Jordan Love, we keep expecting it to go away. I think it's just who he is. And when you're not making the big plays to offset it, you can't allow it. You will not win playoff games that way. It just will not happen.
Well, the games for next week are set, and the first one up, the one I'm most excited about and terrified about, is none other than the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. The Battle of the Bees, the Battle of the MVPs, whatever you want to call it, it's here. The match that everybody is going to be watching this weekend, I believe. I would like to think everybody watch all the games this weekend, but if somebody had to tune into one, this is the one. And I don't know what time it's going to be. I hope it's a primetime game.
It's the Sunday night game, my friend.
There we go. That's what we wanted, because Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, in the spotlight, the MVP candidates going head-to-head. There is no better television. I know you have a graphic that you want to talk about. I know there's a lot you want to say. and I'm going to give the floor to you, but I just want to say, on behalf of the Buffalo Bills organization, we're ready for you.
Okay, so I actually don't have a ton to say. I do want to talk about the matchup. Before we get there, I've just got the numbers. Again, numbers don't mean anything necessarily. This isn't an NBA.
Yeah, but they're fun. They're fun to look at.
They're fun to look at. It's we know the Ravens blew the Bills out earlier in the season. That was in Baltimore. What's going to change? Here's the stats of the teams as we look into it.
Josh Allen said post-game that he's going to be watching a lot of film of that defense, okay?
Well, I hope so. Somebody needs to.
He's obviously skipped it a few weeks ago.
Yeah, he missed it that week. The numbers, as you see, pass offense, Ravens get the edge. Rush offense, Ravens are first in the league. Bills are ninth. Offensive points per game, second for the Bills, third for the Ravens. So we're all real close there offensively. Starts to break down a little bit on the defense, though. 24th pass defense for the Bills, 31st for the Ravens. Here's what I think might be the game, Ryan. The Ravens have the number one rush defense in the league. The Buffalo Bills have the 12th ranked rush defense in the league, and that's even a little generous. Points allowed a game, 9th for the Ravens, 11th for the Bills. So I kind of think the matchup in this game, and then we can talk into and just see how we feel. I think it's going to come down to, is Buffalo's defense going to be able to stop the run? Baltimore could have beaten Pittsburgh without throwing a pass. They ran like 16 times in a row. This is the first time we've seen the Ravens with Derrick Henry. I feel okay about the Bills' secondary, even with the, injuries, like a talent, whatever. I feel like Sean McDermott will have something cooked up that they'll be able to manage the passing game, even if Zay Flowers returns. I am really, really concerned about the Bills being gashed on the ground because we've seen it in the past. We kind of saw it last year in the Kansas City playoff game. Kansas City was really getting rolling on the ground against Buffalo. Do you think Buffalo can stop the run or limit it? Because to me, if they can't, that's the ball game.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're going to have to. There is no winnable game where we don't, okay? And I know that you put up this graphic and you said that, the Ravens have the number one rush offense. Well, yeah, they have probably one of the greatest, second best this year running backs behind Lamar Jackson with Derrick Henry. And they're number one in rushing in the rush offense. And that's, in my opinion, it's them and the Eagles, and they're neck and neck.
Yes.
But after that, even the next place down, which would technically be third place, there's a far gap in between. Like, those two teams run the ball more efficiently than any team I've probably ever seen, at least in the last 10 years, man. It is crazy how good the Ravens are at designing plays for Derrick Henry, and the amount of speed that man can get at his age and his size is ridiculous.
He looks like he's on a mission, too.
Yes, he does. Yeah, he's stiff-arming people into Uranus, okay?
He's stiff-arming former teammates.
I don't even want to talk about it. Out of all the teams in the league, or at least in the AFC, this is the one I did not want to play. Okay?
Of course. We were on a collision course for this game. This is where it was going.
I know. We're going to have to stop Derrick Henry, so this is what I would do. All right? I know everybody's going to call me and ask me, hey, Ryan, look, we need a defensive game plan. Hello. This is Sean McDermott. I was wondering if you would perhaps have any idea of what we could do against the Ravens. Sean, I'm so glad you called. I've been thinking about this for the last 10 seconds since I got over the fact that you just called me. Stop Derrick Henry at all cost. I don't care if Lamar Jackson gashes us for 20 or 30 yards every now and then. I agree
with this.
I don't care if Lamar Jackson throws a touchdown pass to Zay Flowers in an insanely dynamic and dialed-in pass. I don't care if that happens. Do not let Derrick Henry control the clock and then also get over 120 yards on us, because we cannot win with that situational outcome.
I agree.
We have
I
a
agree
great shot at winning if we just shut down the run from Derrick Henry. That's it. That's all we have to do. I don't care if we have to battle him out, because I think we could go air to air with him, no problem. But if they start controlling that clock like the Ravens are so good at doing and start gashing us on the ground with Derrick Henry, buddy, we got no shot.
No, I'm with you. And I think you kind of saw that from the Steelers, even though they didn't have a fight. It seemed like anytime they ran an RPO where it could have been Jackson or Henry, Watt would crash in on Henry. They were selling out saying, we're going to stop Henry. I agree. I think that's kind of the game plan. I think you have to go in and say, we can't take them both away, And we probably can't take Lamar away because he can run and pass. We have to try to stop Derrick Henry because Henry can only do one. He can run really well. Lamar Jackson can run really well and pass really well. I know this seems like a simplified breakdown, but you're facing such a dynamic team with a roster that probably doesn't match up. Talking about defensively, the Buffalo Bills defensive roster does not match up to the Ravens offensively. So you're going to have to scheme around it. I'm interested to see how McDermott does that, how he implements his scheme into his plan, because we know he always has really creative schemes in these playoff games. He's a great defensive coach, but you have to focus on one. I agree. Henry's the one. You got to limit him. You cannot have him get into the third, fourth quarter with 80, 90, 100 yards because he's going to just keep wearing you down and break the game open.
Yeah, and I know we're spending a little bit more time on this than probably the rest of them we will.
No, this is the game.
This is the one.
These are both of these teams could win the Super Bowl.
And if the conversation continued and he said, hey, while you're at it, if you could just give us a little pointers on offense too, this is what I would say. Well, since we've stopped Derrick Henry now and we forced Lamar Jackson to throw the ball and have a better potential of him making a mistake through the air and us turning over the ball, if we get one turnover from Lamar Jackson, I think we win the game. Just going out on a limb and saying that, okay? Secondly, on the offensive side, Sean, this is what we have to do. We have to stop playing like we're on fire, okay? The Bills have a hard time at controlling clock. They seem to just hit those big gash plays. They hurry up to the line. They snap the ball. It's like they don't breathe. It's like they're just on this pendulum that just keeps going and going and going and go. Like, calm down, take some time, let the play clock dial down a little bit, and let's get some minutes on the clock shaved off.
Well, I agree with that premise in general. I think it's kind of the same premise you see people kind of take when they play Patrick Mahomes or even when they play Josh Allen. You want to slow the game down.
Yes.
James Cook, I think to win this game, James Cook has to be a big factor.
I love that they kind of rested him a little bit toward the end of the game. And hey, kudos to the Bills for not looking past the Broncos, okay? I thought
especially early in that game.
I thought at first when you had texted me, I'd just gotten out of church and you said, hey, the Broncos are winning. I'm like, uh-oh. Like, did we do what we always do? We look past this week to go on to the next. I'm glad that the Bills actually settled back down, and then they won the game pretty handily after that.
Yeah, for sure. They were definitely prepared. They did what they needed to do. I believe if this game turns into a shootout, then I think Buffalo would like this game more as a shootout than the Ravens would, interestingly enough, because if it turns into a shootout, blow for blow, back and forth, then I think the Bills would be in a good position. I think the Ravens would be fine too. Honestly, the thing I'm interested to see, and I don't know if this will happen, what does the game look like if Buffalo goes up by 2 scores? Because that's the situation where we see the Ravens in the past, even last year in the playoffs,
make the mistakes.
They start to get antsy. They start to make mistakes. They start to go away from the run. Lamar starts to, look inside himself and doubt himself. And this is the moment. We've said it. I know Lamar looked great against the Steelers. That's fine. He looked great against the Texans last year. That doesn't count. The wild card weekend is irrelevant. What is Lamar going to look like? He has not had a dominant elite playoff performance other than the wild card weekend. Can he deliver it? Because he has to. The winner of this game is going to Arrowhead. Lamar's trying to get that monkey off his back. And in an interesting, change of pace on the other side, Josh Allen's monkey that he's got to get off his back is next week. He's got to get to Arrowhead and defeat Patrick Mahomes, but he's got to get past Lamar Jackson first. If the Ravens get down, are they going to start to crumble, or are they going to be able to fight through, unlike they have in the past?
Last thing, what I'm hoping happens is that the Ravens are so confident because of how bad they beat the Bills earlier in the season that they go into this game a little ill-prepared, or at least underprepared for what the Bills are ready to bring, because the Bills got better as the year went on and they started to develop even more and get more in sync with each other. This
isn't the same Bills team that got blown out earlier.
Not at all.
It's just
not at all. So I'm hoping that happens, but also, like you pointed out, when you look at the record in the playoffs, Josh Allen is a beast in the playoffs. I mean, he is so good. He's much better than Lamar Jackson when it comes to record in the playoffs.
100%.
Hands down. And so I think that matters a lot. I think that's something that Lamar could get a little antsy about, because he knows he has to put up or shut up. And Josh Allen's going to come into this thing, I hope, especially since it's technically a home game, really calm and ready to play some good football and beat Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens.
Who do you think wins?
I can't turn my back on the Bills this late in the season, man. Give me Josh Allen and those Billies all the way.
I agree. I'm going with Josh Allen until I see it from Lamar. I'm leaning to the Bills. Could go either way, and then we'll talk about that conference championship match.
The Week 16 rematch is here. The game we were at where we saw Patrick Mahomes beat C.J. Stroud and the Texans. The Texans played the Chiefs. The Chiefs haven't played in, 3 months. 3 weeks. Feels like 3 months, though, since Patrick Mahomes has actually played a real football game. And even the last game that he played that actually counted against the Steelers, well, they kind of handled that game quite assuredly.
Yes.
So the Texans obviously played the Chiefs again. The stakes are much higher now.
For sure.
Because you're in a playoff game now. So, Tristan, are you worried, number one, that the Chiefs have rested for 3 weeks? Sometimes that's not a good thing. And then number two, are you worried that the Texans have been here, done this, and now they have an answer for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid?
Normally, I would be worried about the rest thing. If it was any other team, actually, I would be really worried about it. But no, just because of the veteran experience. I think because it's Andy Reid and because it's Patrick Mahomes and Spags, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, it's a team with a lot of veterans. Even McDuffie, Karlaftis, young guys who have been there through this run, who have been there through what's the whole attempt at the three-peat. I'm not that worried about the rest. I think they'll be fine. Well, they might be a little rusty in the first quarter. I can feel that, but it's Patrick Mahomes. Would you be worried about Tom Brady in a playoff game? Would you be worried about, Michael Jordan, LeBron James?
Tom Brady come back and play tomorrow, and I'd be like, man,
I'm picking him. I'm picking him. Yeah, exactly.
His record speaks for itself, and the Chiefs are just so good in the playoffs. And you've made this point for weeks and weeks. Is Travis Kelce in the playoffs is a different man than he is in the regular season, at least in the past 3 years.
No, 100%. And we've talked about parlays and stuff. I haven't looked. I imagine his receiving over under is going to be a little low because
hammer it.
Because he hasn't been used in the regular season. We saw it last year though. They save him in the regular season and then they turn him loose in the playoffs. This could be his last year. I mean, it is very possible this is his final season. He's obviously not what he used to be.
Before he rides off into the sunset with Taylor Swift.
That's what he's going to do, man. And I don't blame him. We saw it a little bit at the end of the season that when he needed to make a couple plays, he made it. I think he's just got so many snaps left in him, and he's saving them for the big moments. Honestly, I think the rest is going to help him. They got Hollywood Brown back. The last 2 weeks of the season against the Texans and against the Steelers, that offense looked like what they looked like 2 years ago. We were like, oh, there's the Kansas City offense. I think they're going to be healthy and ready to roll, man.
Yeah, I think Pacheco's going to have himself a heyday. And I think Travis Kelce, you said that he puts up in the playoffs. He's just such a great safety valve. He's that Mr. Reliable. He's the one that, when Patrick Mahomes needs him, he's going to step up. He's going to put all he has out there to make that play.
And it's not like early in the season where he's the only option. Now, you've got to worry about Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, who they figured out how to use. They're not sending him deep as the X. They're using him in jet sweeps, getting him the ball in space. That's what I'm saying. So you've got Noah Gray, you've got Xavier Worthy, you've got DeAndre Hopkins, and you've got Hollywood Brown, and then you've got Travis Kelce. All of a sudden, this receiving core is really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's here, man, and it's real. And if I'm out of all the teams that are left to play, this is the team that I would be least worried about.
I would agree. And look, the Texans impressed me against the Chargers. I'll just say it, I did. But we saw that game that they played a couple weeks ago, and the Chiefs kind of controlled them the entire football game. Yeah. You asked me, do I think the Texans learned anything from that game could apply to it? Maybe, but without Tank Dell, I really just don't think this team can compete. I think it's going to be close for the first half, maybe even the first 3 quarters. We know what the Chiefs do, but ultimately, I just don't think, even if the Texans are as well prepared as possible, even if C.J. Stroud plays a phenomenal football game, plays the best game of his career, I still don't believe it's going to be enough because I think the Texans' offensive line is going to get hit with those Spags defenses. We saw the Spags calls confuse C.J. Stroud in the game we went to. I think that's going to continue. I'm not certain the Chiefs will get the three-peat accomplished. Even I do feel like they will. The Chiefs could lose a playoff game. I would be shocked if they get eliminated in the divisional by the Texans. No season of Patrick Mahomes' career has ended before the AFC Championship game. I don't think it happens this year. I think he's going to another AFC Championship game.
Yeah, not going to lie, I'm really pulling for the Texans this weekend.
Definitely. Because then the winner of the Ravens-Bills is going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't want to play the Chiefs at all, especially in the AFC Championship. There is no way, no how. If I could pick between the Texans and the Chiefs, I'll take the Texans, please. All right, next up on the docket is the Commanders at the Lions. And Tristan, if I'm being honest with you, man, besides the Bills, which obviously is my team, this is my second favorite game that I'm most excited to watch. I'm super excited because Jayden Daniels has shown what he can do with controlling the clock, with making the plays, being the dude. And then you got the Lions, and the Lions kind of speak for themselves. We know what they are. We know how strong they can be, how well this offense can run. The defense can play shutdown football sometimes, not often, but we're also facing Jayden Daniels, which is a rookie, man. So we're looking at a rookie coming into the second stage of the playoffs, playing a team that, for lack of a better term, is dominating everybody they play offensively. Do you think that this defense for the Commanders steps up like it did against Baker Mayfield this evening?
No, I don't. I mean, maybe they can, but even so, I don't think it's going to be enough. I don't think the Commanders defense, no matter how good they play, can nullify the Detroit offense. No one's been able to stop the Detroit offense all year. Even Buffalo, I mean, they hung 40-something on Buffalo. Like, the Detroit Lions are going to score points, and after what they did to Sam Darnold last week on defense, Aaron Glenn really should be a head coach next year, Ryan, because what he has done with that Lions defense, with literally nobodies, with guys off the streets, with the no-name bandits, it is so impressive. He is an amazing defensive coordinator, and the fact that he went into that Vikings game saying, Sam Darnold hasn't been pressured. We can't beat him playing man. Let's just pressure him. And if we get beat over the top, so be it. And they wrecked Sam Darnold. They had him seeing ghosts again. I don't think Jayden Daniels will be seeing ghosts. I think, as we talked about, all of his starts in college, all of his experience and his poise is going to pay off. I think Jayden Daniels will be ready for the moment, and I think he's going to deliver a fight. I think this is going to be a battle for a couple quarters, but ultimately when it comes to the end of the game, as we get into the third, fourth quarter, you're going to see that the Commanders are just an obstacle to the Lions. The Commanders' season has already gone better than anybody could expected. The Lions are on a mission. They've got somewhere to be, and the Commanders are just in their way. I don't think the Lions are invincible, but I would be absolutely stunned if the Commanders take them down. I do think they can play them close, though.
Yeah, the Commanders' accolades are going to be unaffected by this game, even if they lose, because, like you said, they've made it further than anybody thought they would. But I'll say at the end of this game, if the Lions and Dan Campbell do not come out on top, we've got another story to talk about.
It's a huge story, and I was thinking just a minute ago, how can the Commanders win this ball game? Because when I look at matchups, I like to think, if I was the coach, like, what's my goal? We kind of know what Detroit's goal is: outscore the other team. Make plays on defense. They'll do that. I think Detroit's plan with all the injuries is just outscore people. If I'm the Commanders, I don't think I have the personnel on defense to stop the Lions, because your only hope at limiting the Lions' offense is just collapsing the pocket and getting to Jared Goff. You have to hit Goff early and often. You have to sack him. You have to rattle him. You have to force him into a turnover. And we know the Detroit Lions offensive line is arguably the best in the NFL, one of the top 5. They don't get beaten easy, and the Commanders don't have enough guys on that defensive line that I think can cause that pressure. And if they blitz, I don't know how well the corners can hold up against the Lions. It's a mismatch to me. The Commanders' defense played way better than I expected against the Bucs, but I just don't think they have the personnel to implement the game plan they would need to implement to beat the Lions. So unless the Lions just make mistakes and shoot themselves in the foot, which can happen, teams can do that, that's the only way the Commanders win this game, in my opinion. They have to kind of have it gifted to them.
Well, guys, the wild card weekend is in the books. We have made it through all the games that happened this weekend, except for the Monday night game. We will maybe jump back on and talk about that, depending on how the week goes. But we've also talked about all the future games to come. We've got a weekend of football coming up, man, that you don't want to miss. All these games are going to be fantastic. Like, it's going to put this past weekend to shame. Yes. I think these games this weekend are just going to be stellar. Every one of them has a potential to be like a buzzer beater type game.
Yes. Everybody says every year the divisional round weekend is the best weekend of the NFL. Obviously, like the Super Bowl, but like other than that, the best weekend of the season is the divisional round. You've got 4 teams or 8 teams who are really good going at it. You feel like any team could win. You say maybe Texans and Chiefs is probably the long shot game. Even Commanders Lions, you could get frisky. You guys are watching this. You know who won the Vikings-Rams game. We recorded this Sunday night, so we don't know. I just want to ask you, Ryan, and I hope this plays for anyone watching it. Who do you think has a better shot at beating the Eagles? Because The Eagles didn't look invincible against the Packers. They really didn't. The defense looked great, but the offense wasn't spectacular. Do you think either of these teams could beat Philadelphia?
Yeah, I do. I think, okay, this is going to be weird, but I think the Vikings have a better shot at beating the Eagles, but I think that the Rams find a way to beat the Vikings.
Gotcha.
If that makes any sense.
No, that makes sense.
So I think that's kind of how it would play out for me. Last question to you, though, I want to ask you, being a Chiefs fan, say you guys make it to the Super Bowl and you win out. What team now on the opposite side of the aisle of the NFC are you most terrified of or would least like to play? The Lions, Commanders, Vikings, or Rams, or the Eagles?
If I'm a Chiefs fan, the team I least want to see in the Super Bowl is the Philadelphia Eagles.
See, mine would still be the Detroit Lions if I'm the Bills fan.
I think Patrick Mahomes would carve up the Lions. It's funny, too, because the Bills beat the Lions a couple weeks ago. And
that's why I'm so scared about it, because we went like
you don't want to replay
them.
them. You don't want to replay them. I understand
I don't want to do that again.
The Eagles' defense is so good. Vic Fangio is an excellent defensive coordinator. I feel like they would be able to kind of manage Patrick Mahomes, and they just played each other in a Super Bowl 2 years ago, so they're still real fresh in each other's minds. They would be more prepared. They'd be more tape. I think that would be a grudge match for Philadelphia. If, as a Chiefs fan, the only team I would want to avoid is Philadelphia. As far as the Ravens-Bills game goes, I think I would rather see Lamar Jackson. Look, Josh Allen scares me more than Lamar scares me as a Chiefs fan.
Get us out of here into the next weekend, the divisional round of the playoffs.
All right, man. I will do it. Thank you all for watching the show. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it. We are just two idiots covering one sport, having fun, bringing the comedy, the levity back into it, and not pretending we know everything, because it's a shocker, guys. We don't. We will be here through the rest of the season, every single week posting videos, and throughout the offseason. We don't go away. We cover the draft. We cover free agency. We do fun segments and play games. We are here all the time trying to grow this channel. He is Ryan. I am Tristan. You guys have a safe week. Soak it in, because the season's almost over. Get ready for the divisional round. We'll see you after those games. Goodbye.